faced halo-headed, float-above-the-ground Jesus, but rather the earthy, untidy, wild, gritty, table-overturning, fully human yet divine, tender, compassionate, dangerous, understanding, grace-filled Jesus. That Jesus gradually revealed himself to Mike throughout his life, but never more profoundly than in the 10 to 12 years preceding Mike's untimely death. In the 1980s and 90s, as the editor of a satirical Christian magazine called The Wittenberg Door, Mike became a bit of a table overturner himself in the face of the excesses of televangelism. No need to name names from those days. A quick search on Google will tell you who they were back then. There's a fresh and plentiful contingent of them today. He was appalled at the false gospel that was being sold to people through their television screens. For nearly 20 years, Mike used the vehicle of The Door, the name the magazine had morphed into, to expose the outrageously fallacious and downright ridiculous things being done in the name of the Jesus he so loved. Mike began introducing young people to Jesus as a church camp counselor in the early 1960s when he was just 18 years old. Rebel that he was, Mike was kicked out of 2 Bible colleges before ultimately graduating from San Diego State University with a degree in communications. He was always fond of telling people that it took him 10 years to get his 4-year education, and he gleefully told the stories of how he came to be kicked out of those 2 Bible colleges. These stories encompass unbelievably terrible things like violating the 18-inch rule by sitting too close to a girl at a basketball game, hiding in the dormitory bathroom stalls by propping his hands and feet against the walls during the lights-out room checks, calling the dean of men a liar and telling him to go to hell when wrongly accused of planning to meet up with a girl. It was accidental, but he did use the opportunity to chat with her. Using real blanks in a shotgun during the performance of a play he was student directing, flames shot 10 feet out of the gun, and so much more. I'm pleased to report that Mike's mischief-making continued to be a part of his repertoire throughout his life, growing into much more sophisticated pranks that had me, the kids, and most of our friends laughing so hard we were frequently in danger of needing a change of pants. In the late 60s, Mike realized that he could ultimately reach more young people by providing resources and training to the adult volunteers and eventually paid youth ministers who worked with kids in churches all around the country. With the help of a financial backer who appeared out of nowhere, though Mike always knew it was God who orchestrated it, Mike co-founded an organization called Youth Specialties, ultimately legitimizing and establishing youth ministry as a professional calling every bit as noble as that of a paid pastor of a church. Before long, Mike was speaking to churches, youth workers, and young people all over the U.S., as well as in a few other countries. Nearly 40 years later, Youth Specialties is still serving youth workers, now internationally, thereby impacting the lives of adults and young people across the globe. In the mid-70s, Mike's unique voice concerning the church in America captured the attention of some people in a very small town in rural Northern California. After multiple meetings, Mike was asked to come and be the lay pastor of a new church they were starting. He agreed, and though he didn't end up actually moving to Eureka, California for 2 more years, this was the beginning of more than 20 years that Mike was a volunteer pastor. You heard that right, an unpaid volunteer. Of first one and later a second little church in a tiny town that virtually no one has ever heard of. At the same time, along with his partners, Mike continued to lead the rapidly growing business of Youth Specialties in San Diego. My husband frequently referred to himself as a Kmart pastor because he had never been to seminary and was not an ordained minister. For years, he was haunted by feelings of illegitimacy because he didn't consider himself a real pastor. But as he later came to understand, Grace Community Church itself was his seminary, and the people of the church, with their messy and broken lives, were his professors. You will find many stories of the people of Grace Community later on, as well as within the book Dangerous Wonder. While for much of his life, Mike would have been classified as a moderately conservative evangelical, life-altering events began to take place that would eventually cause the conservative to drop away, forever changing his understanding of God and launching him straight into the heart of God's amazing, inexplicable, and unfathomable grace. First, Mike's 18-month-old daughter was diagnosed with cancer. Though he didn't know it